Hey, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. We are here on a Friday afternoon. It's 4:19. Got a minute? And I had some requested rants from one of my good subscribers here, Michael A.J. Norris. Good guy. Always has some interesting topics for me to discuss. And so I've built up a few of them for you. So we'll go through them. We're talking Miesha Tate, perhaps going to have a third fight, maybe at UFC 300, the pay-per-view, and that would be possibly against a returning Ronda Rousey. We'll discuss that. What else have we got on target here? We'll throw some other stuff in the mix. Apparently, TNA Wrestling has gone into business with Endeavor, the parent company of the WWE. We'll get into that as well. And a sighting of Nails, I believe his real name is Kevin Kelly, a wrestler from way back when, who's apparently coming back into the scene for autograph signings. Let me know if you can hear me okay, folks. So let me talk about this Miesha Tate Ronda Rousey 3 possibility. I just watched their prior two fights. I've seen the prior two fights before. I did not see their prior two fights in live time. I know that it's the first one was at Strike Force for the Strike Force title before UFC even allowed women, and then of course they had a big rematch a few years later. Both victories for Ronda Rousey with the armbar submission. The first fight was over in the first round, and was it the second fight was over in the third round? Was that correct? And Ronda really did put a vicious arm bar on her opponent, on Miesha, and really did a number on her arm. And Miesha in that first fight especially did not want to tap out. She basically had to tap out to save her arm. It looked like her arm got a lot of damage anyway. And I watched Chael Sonnen. If you're familiar with him, I watched Uncle Chael. His thoughts on this possible third match. He wasn't too into it. I'm kind of into it, though. I'm going to disagree with Chael, and I'll tell you why. I think the storyline of a third fight is pretty interesting. This is kind of a really interesting thing for both women. I mean, they've both, have done different things. They've gone on to have children. They're at different points in their life. Miesha has kept with Ultimate Fighting, with mixed martial arts. Ronda, of course, has gone on to pro wrestling, WWE, and other, movie appearances and so forth. But I think that Miesha is still burning. She still has that burning desire to get her victory over Ronda Rousey, and I think that that makes it an interesting fight, in my opinion. I just think that the storyline is there now. The win loss records, and I just watched Ronda's fight with Amanda Nunes, where she got decimated in basically 47 seconds. The fight had to be stopped. That notwithstanding, this is just a grudge match, and it would be really interesting to me to see which one of these two women still wants that victory. I'm pulling for Miesha. I think with Miesha, this is a thing where she never could beat Ronda. She was always in Ronda's shadow. They did the whole Ultimate Fighter show together. Miesha has always stepped in Ronda's shadow, and I think this would be a great way for her to get that victory. Would kind of not totally even out the score, but would be a nice thing. It reminds me of when Bernard Hopkins in boxing demanded a match with Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. had beaten Bernard Hopkins early in their careers, and then they had this rematch, which was 10 or 12 years later. And by the time they had the rematch, Bernard was really at the top of his game, and Roy had fallen down a few notches. I kind of see that like this. I think that if Ronda, for her end, if she really wants to get back into MMA, or if she wants to have a one and done, come back, go out on a high note, go out better than the last time we saw her in MMA, which I think was losing to Nunes. She has no excuse, because she's fighting a woman that she's beaten twice before. Other people have beaten Miesha Tate. Miesha is still in this thing. She's still fighting regularly and doing quite well. So it would still be an impressive victory for Ronda Rousey if she were to come out of a 3 or 4 year retirement to get a victory over Miesha Tate. That still means something. But it's almost like Ronda would be fighting herself. She would be fighting the ghost of her former self, from 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Like I said, I do find this intriguing. Now, where you put this on a card, I think the thing to do with a match like this is to make this like the featured undercard match. Like basically, it could be as high as the number 2 match on UFC 300, which I'm assuming is going to be stacked with big fights. So I don't think you need to put it at like the top spot. I mean, it kind of reminds me, for a wrestling analogy, of when Roddy Piper and Adrian Adonis fought at WrestleMania 3. It was a big match, but it was clearly under the shadows of the Hogan Andre match, the Steamboat Savage match. And Piper and Adonis went on right before intermission. And I think that was something like this. You could do that. Not obviously UFC doesn't really have official intermissions that I know of. They do have little breaks, but they have so many fights on these shows. I think it would be good to have this match, but not necessarily as a main event. I think, third or fourth match from the top as a special attraction. It's definitely going to get its share of views. I think it could be a 3-rounder. I don't think they need to make it a 5-rounder. So there you go. I'm actually pro Tate Rousey 3. I just think it's a good matchup, and I think it's an interesting matchup because Ronda is coming back, if she does come back, and Misha is still here, and she's been here, and so it's kind of like the turtle versus the rabbit. I was watching the first fight between these two, and Ronda Rousey is just like a phenom. I mean, she's just coming in there, and she's got so much energy, and Misha's doing her best. She's a true professional, but she's like trying to bottle lightning in a bottle is what Misha's trying to do, fighting Ronda. And I just think that, 10 years later, Ronda's probably going to be slowed down. I mean, that's just natural for anybody. And I think that Misha, in my opinion, she's never had a better chance to finally beat Ronda Rousey as she does now. And once again, I'd say I'm rooting for Misha in this one. And that's my opinion. So let's go on to the next topic. He was asking me about what I thought of this TNA news. TNA Wrestling, we're just going to do some subtopics here. TNA Wrestling is apparently going to be doing streaming. They've going to reboot their streaming services on January 5th, 2024. And they're partnering with Endeavor. And now we all know what Endeavor is. Endeavor is the parent company of WWE and UFC. So Endeavor Streaming, which is a subdivision of that, is now going to be handling and in business with TNA Wrestling. And who is this good for? I mean, I think it's good for basically TNA Wrestling. I think it's going to be a nice upgrade for them. I think for the fans, like to me, that's even tempting. To be honest with you, if the format of the platform of the app is going to be easy to use, there's a lot of TNA wrestling, especially the early years. I've got a Blu-ray disc set of TNA Year One. It's just the 2002 weekly shows, but those early years, 2003, 2004. Raven stuff in early Impact Wrestling or early TNA Wrestling, I would like to see some of that stuff. And I do think there's something to be said, guys, for, what's up, Scorpions fan? I do think there's something to be said for good apps. And I have said this in the past, that I think that with all the stuff that we've seen with the WWE, the former WWE network, which is now part of Peacock, I do feel that if nothing else, the streaming itself, like the bandwidth or the speed, whatever you want to call it, I think it has improved with the Peacock. I think that if you remember 2016, 2017, going back to 2014, whenever the WWE network was around, you'd have a lot of glitches and you'd have to reboot a lot. And I think, at least from my personal experience, Peacock, not so much. I think Peacock has been an upgrade. And I think with that in mind, it would be really interesting if Endeavor Streaming can upgrade TNA Wrestling. And now I think the other question might be, at some point, does the WWE come off of Peacock and get their own streaming service back in the States? Apparently, the WWE network is still available outside the USA, but in the USA, we just have it through Peacock. Could this be something where Endeavor takes over the rights to WWE? And I think what we're all kind of wondering is, at some point, does TNA Wrestling get swallowed up by WWE? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think WWE ever really saw TNA as a threat. They did have a couple of good years, maybe 2005, 2000, 6 up till 9. But I think the WWE just kind of thinks of TNA as a breeding ground. I mean, they've gotten some of their guys. I think Abyss works backstage now at WWE as a producer, and they've had other guys that came through TNA that went back to them, including Jeff Jarrett, the Road Dogg, and others. Who's that guy? The Jeremy Borash. I guess Jeremy Borash is a top guy now in WWE as far as a behind the scenes guy. So my buddy here is asking Vince McTrump. So he's talking about Vince McMahon, who is a good friend of Donald Trump. Why is he still here? Buddy, I think it's just a thing where, look, it's like if Ray Kroc, was around. I mean, I'm sure he had his finger in the hamburger mix for as long as he could. Same thing with the Colonel and KFC chicken. I think when there's a person who's so identified with the product, I mean, I guess a notable exception to this would be Papa John with Papa John's Pizza. But when there's a notable, figurehead for the company, I think it's hard to totally eliminate that individual from the company they created, no matter what they say, no matter what the paperwork is. I think Vince McMahon will always be in the WWE to some extent until he's dead. Quite frankly, Hangman Page may be in the devil mask. Yeah, you're talking about this storyline here with TNA, with AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and the devil. He might be, buddy. I mean, I kind of have a feeling that they're still trying to figure that out. Like it kind of feels like it's hitting Black Scorpion levels, if you remember that. Back when they were trying to get Al Perez to wear the Black Scorpion mask at Starrcade and Ric Flair had to do it. It's starting to feel like it was me, Austin. It was me all along. It's just feeling very, I don't know, anticlimactic type of thing. Let's see here, buddy. Tomorrow night, there's an NXT pay-per-view. Well, that's good to hear. That's the first I've heard of it, buddy. I haven't been watching weekly NXT wrestling. You can tell me what the main event is. I can look it up real quick. I do go to the NXT house shows. I have one coming up December 15th, a week from tonight, basically. But I haven't been watching the weekly shows, to be quite honest. That's maybe why you guys don't see as many angry videos from me. I just got to the point with my anger with pro wrestling that I'm not going to allow these idiots to consume me. Their failure to do good creative wrestling, their inconsistencies, their failures are not going to affect my life any further than they already have. Yeah, see, I mean, I thought NXT was meant to be for the up-and-comers, and Corbin is not an up-and-comer. He's a guy that's been around. I mean, to me, he's not that interesting. He did make an appearance at one of these NXT house shows a few weeks ago. He was well-received, but I think that's just because, like Pavlovian dogs, the fans applaud someone that they've seen on TV a bunch of times. I guess I'm not too into it with Baron Corbin. I've never been a big fan of his. I don't think he's a bad guy or a bad person. I'm not motivated. He doesn't motivate me to watch, quite honestly. So, any more topics? Go ahead, buddy. I do have a bunch of Mike's Instant Movie reviews. You might see slightly more passion out of me over there. I saw the Beyonce Renaissance film last night. Saw The Abyss for the first time. Didn't realize that movie was made in 1989. I've got my review over on One Mike Messier YouTube channel. And what else? I saw The Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage. That was a fun one. So I did a review on that. And what else you got? So the Kelly, I believe his name is Kevin Kelly, not the commentator guy, but the wrestler who was once known as Nails, had a very short-lived, I think a one-and-done appearance at WCW Slamboree 93, I think, against Sting. And he's kind of known as a folk hero among some of the wrestlers because he actually apparently did beat up Vince McMahon Jr. for real, going back to, I guess, late 1992 or early 93, and was promptly fired. And I guess he spoke up against Vince McMahon at the steroid trial. And what do I think? I mean, I think he's one of these guys, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was the Kiniski boys. There was Kevin and Kelly Kiniski. I want to look up Nails real quick because there was a couple of guys I always got them mixed up. Kevin Patrick Wacals, Mr. Magnificent Kevin Kelly. Yeah, if you look up Kevin Kelly from the AWA going back to like 88, this guy was ripped. I mean, he's 65 years old now. But back when he was 35, uh, as Mr. Magnificent Kevin Kelly, the guy was jacked. He kind of had a Lex Luger-esque vibe. I mean, that's what I think the real Kevin Kelly. He was a tough looking dude. You know, I'm not going to take that away from him. He wrestled as the Convict. That was his WCW name. The Prisoner, Nails, Nails with an S, Nails with a Z, Thor, 6'5", 302 pounds. He took Medusa Michelli was his manager for a while. Okay, he teamed with Nick Kiniski. So Nick Kiniski was the son of Gene Kiniski, the former NWA World Champion. So Kevin Kelly was a bit of a badass, at least the look, but his career never really took off. Blair Davenport and Tiffany are great, but hate Thea. She will be a goof, but has potential, but lacks it now. Yeah, I believe you, buddy. And these are some of the ladies that have been at NXT house shows. So I know I've seen them. You can look over on the shorts and you can see all my little footage, my photos and my videos. I mean, these are definitely attractive women. I mean, they're great wrestlers too. You know, and they're being well trained and well groomed. I mean, I think the thing that's so interesting about, I don't know if it's interesting, but it's kind of sad with WWE and NXT is they bring in these athletes, but they all kind of get molded, you know. Yeah, Blair Davenport, she is actually very good. I have seen her live a few times now. Kalani Jordan, I've seen a bunch of times. Lash Legend. I was wondering, you know, Lash Legend really has a similar vibe in a lot of ways to Jade Cargill. I mean, I'm just wondering why don't they push Lash Legend a bit more? Fallon Henley. I think she's like the cheerleader, like the cowboy cheerleader type of that group. You know, it's interesting, buddy. I guess I have an interesting perspective on on NXT wrestling because I do go to the house shows and I do enjoy them. But yet, a lot of times, you guys, especially you, buddy, know more than I do about it because I just don't follow the weekly show. Logan Paul sucks. He made the U.S. Championship lackluster. Nobody cares if he loses it. If LA Knight was part of the crowd, would be invested. If LA Knight was the champion of the U.S. Championship, the crowd would be invested, but now seems what the fuck are they doing at this point? Yeah, man, I can see your point of view. I mean, I think that the WWE is so they're so interested in collecting as many casual fans as they can that often who suffers is like the hardcore pro wrestling fan. And brother, you know, it's taken me years to kind of just get to a healthy point with all this stuff, you know, and to not obsess about it and not to feel like I can control it because obviously they're not listening to me or to you or to any other intelligent wrestling fan. That's not the WWE's concern. They're bending the knee to the Saudi Arabian government. They're bending the knee to social media, whatever they think can get them more eyeballs on YouTube or whatever. That's their justification, and they use those numbers to get themselves the big deals with whether it's USA Network or Peacock streaming or the sale to Endeavor. I mean, that's what they care about. So do they care about the AJ Norrises and the Mike Messiers of the world, people that actually are educated about pro wrestling? They don't care about us. So in turn, I don't care about them as much. Bobby Lashley and Street Profits as heel isn't working. They're getting cheered. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Good point, buddy. You know, I think, first off, I mean, and I don't think I'd be alone in saying this, but the original Street Profits with Shelton Benjamin and our guy there, MVP, and Cedric. God, I remember the name. Cedric Alexander and Bobby Lashley. There was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong with the original Street Profits, yet they broke them up. And that was very disappointing to fans and almost another slap in the face of Bobby Lashley and a slap in the face of all the people that were kind of emotionally invested in that group. And I think the original, you know, Street Profits were around during the pandemic time. So we were all kind of hungry for things that were interesting. I mean, this goes back to that Raw Underground era, if you remember that silliness. So for me, when they try to just when you take out Cedric and Shelton for no good reason, and then you're just kind of shoehorn these other guys in there, and you tell me, I don't think MVP has been around for this, at least as far as I've seen. It kind of feels like, why bother now? Like, why didn't you just stick with what you had? I mean, why try to force feed us this facsimile, group hurt business when the original was fine? And if you remember that comedian, that female comedian who was a writer for the WWE, very briefly, and she did this interview where she kind of said that she had no wrestling experience and so forth, and she promptly got fired. And she was kind of talking about the hurt business as well. And it's just funny to me, the fans of WWE, especially all wrestling fans, but especially WWE fans, are very forgiving, very positive in a lot of ways, very optimistic. I mean, I think people, other wrestling fans, well, you guys so negative. I mean, I think that's just calling it as you see it. I have no problem with a wrestling fan being negative if the product is negative. If you're just pointing out the inconsistencies of the product, I have no problem with that. It's good. WWE pay-per-view are going overseas. Triple H is smart, and so endeavors. If Vince was in charge, I don't think it would happen. Yeah, and there were some other things I heard on Meltzer and Alvarez were talking. Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer were discussing. Apparently, they're going to start doing some things. Endeavor, they're going to promote UFC and WWE pay-per-views back-to-back nights. They're going to try and get these major cities, like a Tampa, Florida, Las Vegas, New York City, Chicago. They're going to try to get these cities to bid for, like a Survivor Series, and the next night a UFC pay-per-view, and the city has to bid for the honor of hosting these events. So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, apparently they've gotten some revenue from that for WrestleMania. I don't know if I think with one of the SummerSlams recently, City had to pay to get SummerSlam there. So, I mean, if you can do it, you can do it. I mean, I think, what's something worth? It's what someone else will pay for it. So if they can con job people or cities to pay for the money, to have these wrestling fans come into their town, then sure. I guess for me, buddy, I'm really just kind of glad in my wrestling fan career anyway, that I kind of lived through some of this stuff. I've already seen the best wrestling. I was there for the Crockett Cup. I was there for Ring of Honor's first couple of shows in Philadelphia. I was there for Barely Legal ECW. I have nothing to prove as a wrestling fan, and I feel that what I saw in my youth, in my childhood, is superior to what's out there now. But I still go to see stuff. I still go to NXT and AEW sometimes. AEW signed Flair for multi-year deal. Why Sting gone? Why Rick Stein? He can't get in the ring. Well, buddy, I think it's just a thing where Tony Khan likes wrestlers. Tony Khan likes having wrestlers around. He finds them entertaining. He's like a child who has the money to buy all the action figures, except the action figures have heartbeats and pulses, at least for the time being. So, I mean, Tony Khan is the Richie Rich, and the toys include human beings. Like Chris Jericho was a great collection item, for him, a great action figure. And now Ric Flair is. And why is he there? Well, it's because, he's selling his energy drink, and he's going to make occasional appearances. And Tony feels that there's value in that. And so that's why, and I know a lot of fans are upset or distraught. And I'm not watching on a weekly basis, so I have nothing to be distressed or distraught about. I mean, as you can see, buddy, I'm just so calm and peaceful now because I don't allow the wrestling to affect my stability. I mean, I've been through that. I've raged against the machine. The machine still stands. And where does my rage go? It does nothing for me. Okay. So I just have to kind of say, hey, I tried my best to fix the business. The business doesn't want to be fixed. And I just have to move on to other things. And I can only do so much. Okay, buddy. Well, I think I'm going to wrap things up. I've gotten Die Hard, the original Die Hard movie, will be on the big screen tonight. I think I'm going to attend a screening of that. I've got many important things to do with my time. So I will resume my activities, but I wanted to come on here, address all these concerns. Kevin Kelly, yes. All the things we discussed. If you missed the opening, I did go into the Misha Tate, Ronda Rousey third fight. I did say I would like to see it, and I would like to see Misha win. And I think, but it's hard because it's hard for me to say that Misha will definitely beat Ronda because that's why I kind of want to see the fight. I want to see what happens. Well, okay, so you've kind of sold me on this. I have not seen it yet, buddy. I was planning to see it a few days ago. I guess I'll have to see it now because you're really pressing it hard for me to go see this. Mikey, Godzilla -1. See, here's the thing: the subtitles thing. It's spoken in Japanese. Do I really want to read for 2 hours? I don't know, buddy. But you're telling me how great it was. You were entertained like an old-fashioned Godzilla movie. This one had a great storyline. I guess I trust you. I mean, I do trust you, buddy. It's just to me, to be honest, and I'm always honest with you, I never really liked Godzilla movies. You know what I mean? Like I like the concept of Godzilla. I like Godzilla in theory, but not in practice. Like it's just I don't know. I mean, I remember that video game Rampage where you could pick like a pseudo King Kong and a pseudo lizard that was sort of like Godzilla, and there was another thing. There was a King Kong, a Godzilla, and like a wolf, right? That was fun. But I mean, Godzilla movies. The only one I really liked. I mean, I've seen a few the ones in the last 15 or 20 years. I've seen them. Yeah, they're kind of fun. But I did like when Godzilla and King Kong, like their 1950s movie. That was my favorite. Okay, well, buddy, you're selling me pretty hard. I do have the movie pass. It's not movie pass, but I have three things. I have the Regal subscription, I have the Cinemark subscription, and get this, I also have the AMC subscription where I'm going to see Die Hard tonight. I did see The Abyss for the first time. I don't know if you've seen that one, buddy, AJ, but I mean, I think you would like Abyss. I just saw that 2 or 3 nights ago. I saw two movies yesterday. I saw Napoleon and I saw the Beyonce movie. Over on One Mike Messier, I have my reviews. I guess I'll take your word for it, buddy. I hate to, I did see that thing you told me to see last time, the trick or treat, the trickster, or the trick or treater, the scary clown who kills the kids. And I did think it was pretty good. It was a little bit gory. This Godzilla -1, I guess I will see it, and I better see it soon. I better see it this weekend, right? Because it's not going to be in theaters forever. None of these movies are. People do that, and buddy, and that always pisses me off. People sit around and they say that they're talking about, oh, I want to see this movie, I want to see it, and then they never see it. And then 3 weeks later, the movie's gone. Oh, I wanted to see that. Well, why don't you go see it, asshole? So I won't be that asshole. I will make a point of seeing this movie, buddy. I guess I'm not going to see it tonight because I've already committed to Die Hard, the original from back in '88, I believe. What do you got here, buddy? Yeah, Silent Night. I think that's the one. I haven't seen that either, buddy. Someone on my Facebook feed was shitting all over it, and I do hate that when people post their little fucking text reviews of movies, and someone was shitting a sandwich on top of the John Woo film. I haven't seen it. Battle Royal, was that the one? I saw one of his movies. There was like a 30 or 40-year anniversary thing. I saw that this past year, sometime in 2023 in the theater. So I will make a point of seeing Silent Night. I mean, I guess there's just a lot of goddamn movies out once again. And I have learned this, unfortunately for me, it's not that big of a deal, but the theater closest to me is a Regal Cinema. It's a nice theater. It's not a great theater. They don't have the relaxing chairs. The sound and the picture quality are not the best. But I do have the subscription to them. That's a theater that I'll go see like a comedy at, and it'll be okay, to go see a comedy. But to see a movie like this John Woo movie, or especially the Godzilla movie or a Die Hard, it's just it lacks a little bit, buddy. Wonka, I don't know, man. I think that movie is basically for teenage girls who are getting excited because Timothy Chalamet is on the screen. And basically, the guy is such a fan favorite with these young teeny boppers and their moms that they're going to be excited for whatever he does. And he's a good looking young guy, and they're going to shoehorn him into Willy Wonka because, he's a good looking young guy. And they'll put him in that movie, and he can act elfish. And I think the thing that more or less upsets me like it would upset Dylan, the Hornswoggle, the former Hornswoggle, is instead of the Munchkins or whatever the fuck they're called, the Hullabaloos or whatever, the Icky Pickies, whatever they were called, they got Hugh Grant to play just one of them and multiply them. The Oompa Loompas, for Christ's sakes. After Christmas Ghostbuster looks great. God, I didn't even see this. I did see the Von Erichs trailer, though. I think I want to do another review on that on another video, which I will do my response. But I am intrigued. I did get a little chill up my spine, buddy, when I saw the guy that's playing Carrie with the In Memory of David go into the ring. Do I have a concern about this movie? I heard. I mean, I'm hearing little things that I wish I didn't hear, but I am going to go see that. I'll probably be one of the first people to see it on December 22nd. I think wrestling fans will love it regardless. I can't speak for the non-wrestling fans. The guy that's playing Carrie looks really small, and Zac Efron as Kevin is looking huge. And I can kind of see, like, I guess to the victor goes the spoils in a weird way, because Kevin outlived everybody. So maybe he got first pick of who played him. But the Carrie guy looks like Carrie Von Erich in the face. Is this match being promoted, buddy? Has this been booked? Walter? It's actually, now it's Gunther, right? Which makes no sense. It's a Nazi name. I guess they copyrighted the name of an actual Nazi, had the first name of Gunther. But Gunther versus Lesnar will be a good match. I'm sure it will be. Some people have been posting these images of Brock Lesnar's daughter. I haven't done that. I mean, yeah, she looks just like Brock Lesnar. So I get the thing that people are, intrigued by. But I mean, she's also a kid. I think she's in her 20s. She's a college student, but I don't want to pick on her. It's not her fault, or it's not her credit. She's just a person doing her thing. WrestleMania 40, Gunther versus Brock. Okay. That's fine. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a hard hitting affair. But we've seen Brock lose at WrestleMania quite a bit. I mean, he lost to Seth Rollins. He lost to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. He's lost to Triple H at WrestleMania. He's lost to Goldberg at WrestleMania. So Brock Lesnar is not like, even in the fantasy world of creation, it's funny because he loses quite a bit, but yet people still get excited about him. Yeah, I do remember Nicole Bass. Interestingly enough, buddy, if you want some Nicole Bass trivia, find Evan Ginsberg on Facebook. He's a good friend of mine. He was a good friend of Nicole's. I believe I saw Nicole Bass in person once at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame and Convention. I want to say in the year 2012. And Nicole, I don't really know too much about her. I mean, I saw her on the Howard Stern show. I saw her on Raw. It seemed like at the time the only natural thing was to put her in there with China. They never did that. I didn't hear about Ken Shamrock returning to WWE. I think I heard something about an action figure or a video game license. Who knows? I mean, maybe Triple H, if he has more swing now, or maybe because of the UFC connection, they're trying to give, as the kids say, give Shamrock his flowers or give him his shamrocks. But good for him. I mean, I've got nothing against Ken Shamrock. A good friend of mine, David Gear, is actually a personal friend of Ken Shamrock, and I respect Ken. But I don't know what to say. I mean, I think Ken Shamrock is definitely one of those personalities that he loves fighting. He's very good at it. He's getting older now, like we all are, but I mean, he's a legend, and I do respect the guy. And I do feel like his matches with The Rock were scintillating back in the late 90s, the 98, 99 era. I think they had some of the best matches in the business. I'm not surprised, though. Everything, it is what it is. Okay, buddy. Well, I hope I've answered your queries, your questions. Folks that weren't able to tune in live, I am jacking my stuff up these days. I'm sharing my stuff a lot more. If you guys want to copy and paste the URL, this was not my best rant. I'm not terribly angry right now. I couldn't fake it. I just didn't want to avoid all these topics that my loyal subscribers here have been demanding that I give their answer. My buddy Shane McKenna was very kind this week to me and Bailey Mack and a few others. So I'll give Shane there in Chi-Town a shout out, and that's it. So folks, have a great Friday. leave more questions and comments and so forth in the comments. And you can buy my book or not. You can subscribe and like or not. It's a free country, at least for now, MikeMessier.com.